Hey there, I'm Davy,
And I'm Carolyn.
and we're just two Asian women having candid conversations about whatever the hell we want to talk about with an intersectional flair.
That being said, today's topic is the 2020 Black Lives Matter or BLM movement, how we felt about it, and what we've learned from it as well. So get comfy and stick around. And welcome back, everybody, to Just Two Asian Women. If it's your first time tuning in, my name is Carolyn. I'm one half of Just Two Asian Women. I'm Laotian American, born and raised in San Diego, and I have two precious dogs, and I love them so much.
Hey everybody, I'm the other half, Davi. I'm Cambodian American, born and raised in Long Beach, California. And in high school, I used to play Quidditch. Yeah, from Harry
Hella.
Potter. Mm-hmm.
What house are you?
Uh, Hufflepuff. How about you?
You know, I used to also think I was Hufflepuff. And I totally vibed with Hufflepuff. And then I found out after some soul searching that I'm more Ravenclaw, which made me feel kind of bad because I used to shit on Ravenclaws all the time, which is not a very Hufflepuff thing to do now that I
Right.
think about it.
Yeah.
But I am a reluctant, now proud Ravenclaw.
All right. Yeah, first I was just like, I wanted to be Gryffindor because,
Yes.
noble people are in Gryffindor, but then and like everyone like thinks Hufflepuffs are like too nice or weak or something, and I'm like, I'm not, and then I'm like, oh wait.
I don't know. When I think of Gryffindors, like, yeah, they're cool, but don't you think they're kind of annoying?
Yeah.
That we just like isolated our whole Gryffindor audience. We love you, but sometimes you're annoying. Okay, chill out. We don't talk about the author. She's transphobic. POS.
Yeah,
Harry
that
Potter just manifested into the universe from nowhere.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, dang.
No, we're like, oh.
And you're like,
Anyway,
yeah.
so we're gonna shift from Harry Potter to something completely different. And Davi and I felt like it was really important to make this episode about Black Lives Matter and how we feel about it and how we've kind of like integrated it into our lives because we felt it was important. Spoiler alert, Davi and I, we support Black Lives Matter. Let's
Mhm.
just make that clear from the
Yes.
get-go. So y'all know where we stand.
We support Black Lives Matter. They are not some like um, terrorist group or anything. They're
Yeah.
people who want liberation in the 21st century.
Yes. Yes. And we vibe with that. Honestly, anything that kind of I feel like we're totally down for any movement that aims for the liberation of any people who have been like systematically or historically oppressed.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
why wouldn't we be, you know?
Right.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons people would not want to be for those movements. Not valid reasons in my
Mhm.
opinion, but we'll get into that later.
So I think we can go about like our first impressions. I saw a lot on social media from my Black friends, like, why now? Like, why not from the first wave of Black Lives Matter? Like, why 2020?
Mm-hmm.
And they generally ask that. So let's talk a little bit about like the context of 2020. Well, first of all, pandemic hits,
Yeah.
and then George Floyd, or instead of saying George Floyd is murdered, I like to put emphasis on the perpetrator.
Mm-hmm.
The police officer killed George Floyd, and
Yeah.
then we're having all of these other police officers or random ass people killing Black people surface, and everyone's so agitated. It bubbled up. I don't know how to explain it.
I suppose to answer your friend's question, like why now, 2020 versus back then. So the Black Lives Matter movement or organization, as we know it, was started in 2013, right? And uh, from my personal experience, I feel like it caught my attention in 2016. That's when Colin Kaepernick kneeled
Mhm.
at the NFL thing, which was dope. And when obviously a lot of Black people died at the hands of police. Excuse me, they were murdered by the hands of the police, which
Mhm.
sucks. And there's a lot of names. Unfortunately, there is a lot of names, like Philando Castile, for example, right?
Mhm.
And in 2016, how old was I back then? I'm 25 now. So I must have been like 21 back then ish. So 2016, I saw it gain kind of like my attention at least. And I don't know, I guess unfortunately for me back then, I was like, oh yeah, that's a movement that's important, but I didn't feel the need to say anything. And I can't explain why that's the case. I guess you could just chalk it up to me just not caring enough. And
Yeah.
now it's 2020 and so much has happened in that 4 years. Trump got elected, um hate crimes were on the rise, and I suppose it kind of just like me keeping track of everything that's going on in the political and racial justice sphere. I'm all like, wait, this is actually really serious, and now I finally realize it. And it sucks that I didn't realize it back then. I wish I did, but I'm happy to have realized it now in 2020.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think back at 2016, I was in college. I don't think I really gave a shit about like social justice, really.
Hmm.
Like I felt bad, and I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what. Or maybe or to chalk it up, I didn't really probably care that much either. And I
Hmm.
think in from 2016 to 2020, yeah, I forget like Trump gets elected. I actually start to notice like I have some friends who are actually politically involved and go to protests, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And like I also think with what's his name, the Supreme Court justice being appointed, the who like
Oh
who
yeah.
probably sexually assaulted Dr. Ford, um what's his name? Oh, I'll look it up.
Brent Kavanaugh.
Yeah, thanks. Oh yeah, Brett Kavanaugh. Like him being elected, it was just like thing after thing after thing. And then 2020, like, I'm so millions of Americans are unemployed. I'm unemployed. I'm frustrated and upset seeing all these posts about police and random ass white supremacists like killing black people and brown people. And I feel
Hmm.
so helpless. Um and I'm like, I have to do something about this. I can't sit and do nothing. So when these like protests started being organized by the community, I thought, hmm, I should probably go to one. And like I
Hmm.
did. It ran on this one random day. I took my grandpa to the bank
Yeah.
when he was still alive. And when I came back home, there was this small group of Black Lives Matter protesters on the corner of the mall in a large intersection, and I gave them a honk when I passed by. But when I got home, I was like, I want to go. So I just
Yeah.
got up. I was really scared. I was like, oh my God, like I'm gonna be maced. Will I get pepper sprayed or whatever? So like I brought the full gear, like flashlight, gloves, mask, water, like band-aids, like all this. And I like
Yeah.
went and I just like it just felt like I finally felt like how people say people have the power?
Yeah.
Like it just sounds like a saying that people just say, but like I felt that. Like
Hmm.
we really do. Like we just can't wait for other people to make life better.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like for the 2020 Black Lives Matter movement, obviously it's still going on right now,
Yes.
but the 2020 Black Lives Matter movement, I feel like was a really big racial uh reckoning for a lot of non-black people, right?
Mm-hmm.
It made, at least on my end, like it made me realize like, wait, this is really, really, really fucked up. Obviously, I don't have to say that. Everyone knows that now. Um, and there was a lot of influence happening in the social media sphere on my end, at least, because I'm very active on Instagram, for example. And I suppose you could say that I have a following. I've never talked about like racial justice and stuff on my account before because I'm an art account, So I'm all like, is this really pertinent to me? But I remember looking at a mutual story and they had posted something about Black Lives Matter very early on, in the early summertime 2020. And I was like, damn, she's right. I should say something. And I actually learned from her story as well. So I thought it was really nice that people who seem to be like so removed from uh any need to talk about racial injustice talk about racial injustice, right?
Yes.
Because any awareness is good awareness. Obviously, it's better to act and to help in a physical way. But if you can't, at least spread like the good message of how racial injustice affects everyone and influences every part of our lives, honestly.
Yeah, it does. And I think social media was a huge force and tool. Like everybody was reposting about what happened to George
Yeah.
Floyd. Like you
Yes.
every single like every day, like I just felt so addicted to social media because I wanted to see what was the next thing that happened or like what's the trial? Like is the police officer going to get fired or go to jail? All of this.
Yeah.
So it was really exhausting, but it was just I couldn't turn away like my turn away my eyes.
Yeah. And at the same time, I felt like I didn't want to turn away either
Yeah.
because I felt like I had been turning away. Uh, maybe not out of malice, but just out of like apathy. And I don't want to be that way anymore.
Mhm.
Like I want to know what's going on. And obviously, I'm not saying that I'm the perfect activist, but I'm gonna do my best and help where I can.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, 2020 Black Lives Matter. I I thought it was really powerful and I liked it a lot on terms of getting everyone to kind of like critically think and face how we've all kind of non-black people of course,
Mhm.
how we've all played into this white supremacist system essentially.
Yeah, it's true. I'm so happy that this movement happened or continues to happen because I don't know why Americans are so uncomfortable talking about race, but
Hmm.
it's like you can see it.
Yeah.
Like it's apparent. So, and it doesn't have to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have to be, definitely. And uh I don't know, I guess I can't speak for everyone
Oh,
else,
I
but
guess same
sometimes
here. But oh, sorry. I want to say the message. Like, I guess some people are like so uncomfortable. Like, just because you're uncomfortable does not mean you're not safe.
right.
Yeah. Sorry. What?
Right. um I feel like there's a lot of people who get like defensive, especially white people. I'm sorry, I have to say it, y'all. You
It's
get
true.
defensive,
It's
and
true.
you don't
There's
have
a
to be. You're already
there's
up there.
there's whole books about it. Okay. It's a psychological phenomenon. It is true.
And it's like a lot of like whataboutisms, like, oh, what about me? I fell down once and scraped my leg, and that made me feel bad. And I'm like, okay, completely
Right.
irrelevant
Or like at work,
comparisons.
everyone else, like I'm the minority at work because everyone else is black and Asian and Latinx and stuff like that. And I'm like, bitch, shut up. Like,
Yeah, we're not talking about like I hesitate to even call that like air quotes racism. Uh,
uh-huh.
Even on a micro scale, but racism always works on a macro scale, right?
Yes.
So even if you are like the lone white person in a majority minority place, you are probably gonna be fine.
Yes.
There's a difference between racism and prejudice and then just people being mean to you. Racism is like um some people want to simplify it to like, oh, if someone was mean to me because of my race, that's racism.
Mhm.
And so like, I mean that's very shallow level, right?
Yeah.
Racism is more like there's people in power systematically oppressing the people not in power. And let me stop being vague. The people in power, white people, if we're talking about honestly the world in general, like everything's dominated by Western powers nowadays,
Mhm.
right? Uh, but let's just bring it down to America. It's white people in power. You could check the statistics. They're in power. And they're always going to, or I'm sorry, white people as a whole are always going to systematically oppress BIPOCs, Black, Indigenous, and people of color.
Mhm.
just through the institutions that they've created and the history and precedent that they've made, right?
Right.
And I feel like I need to I feel like I need to explain it a little bit to our white audience as well. And at the same time, I kind of hate that I have to do that because I feel like I'm catering to white people's feelings, which I feel like I don't have to do. But I will anyway, because I kind of want to make it easier to understand. Because it might be hard to understand if you've always grown up and you don't. There's no need to think about that stuff, you know? Like, why do you have to? Like, I don't have to think about rocket science. I'm not a rocket scientist. So, maybe that was a bad comparison
Yeah.
because rocket science is not an oppressive system that affects everyone.
Right.
But anyway, maybe you get my point. It's like when, let's take University of Southern California, USC was part of a big college scandal where basically they admitted rich kids, because their parents were rich, bribes, if you will. So USC, the college, did bad things, and you as a student of USC, you're like, oh, what the fuck? That sucks. Like, why would you do that? I don't want you to take bribes from rich kids. Uh, However, you're still a participant, an active enrollee at USC, at that college. So even though you're against it, you're still giving money, you're still doing things that actively support the system at USC.
Mm-hmm.
So to bring that metaphor all around, if you're a white person and you feel like you hate racism and you think it's bad, it makes you feel bad, and like hypothetically, ideologically, you're against it, but still the things that you do are going to uphold white supremacy, and that's what we're talking about here. Like the white establishment, the white supremacy thing that's always lingering over America.
Mm-hmm.
Did that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. It's like when people think of systems and like, well, I'm not racist. And it's like, okay, well, guess what? Like, let's say we have this system of America, our foundations and laws, right? And
Mm-hmm.
let's say we don't have racist or consciously just say let's just say we don't have racist white people. But if you put like them back, like because of the systems, laws, and policies put in place, white people will always have the power. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what the system is. And so it's not about like as individuals, yeah, it does help to be like anti-racist, but if we don't get rid of the laws and policies that have racist outcomes, which are like inequities, then the system and then people will benefit from the racism. It's just it has to be an abolishment of like the mindset and abolishment of the institutions,
Mm-hmm.
which is really hard.
It is really hard. I feel like, I'm definitely still learning how to do that. Uh, and it takes a while. It's only been less than a year of me actively trying to abolish that, and I'm still trying, y'all.
Mm-hmm. And if we think about race, from the get-go, race was socially constructed, meaning people made it up. Like there's no like Asian blood genes, there's no like Mexican blood gene. However, the construct and effects of race is very real, unfortunately. So
Right.
I'm yeah, so what I mean by that is like even though like we don't have different racial ethnic genes, we are being treated differently because, we look differently or are categorized as such.
Yeah, and that's what I get. That's what it really boils down to, right? We just look so different from what the people in power have described as the norm, Western Eurocentric features, and other white behaviors, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, even in our podcast title, like we use race as an identification factor for our title. Like we're just two Asian women. We're not one Cambodian and one Laotian woman, because us being Asian women, it's pertinent in our lives every single day, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's like it influences us being Asian, like influences our like our American experience, per se. And it influences like how we think, our culture influences, how we go about things.
Hmm.
So I feel like that's why it was important. So like speaking as like growing up Asian and like, race relations to like, other ethnicities, but in this case, Black people, because this is about Black Lives Matters, like, you know, some Asian people can be very racist to Black people. Like it is not an accident, right?
Yep.
um Ever since we got here, like my family like are like racist to Black people because on the news they see all these scary stories about Black people being criminals, about how many Black people are in jail. They're in South Central and they, there's a lot of impoverished and poor Black people because of the system, so they think this is like a that's how they are,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But growing up, I knew that was stupid.
Hmm.
Like growing up, like I just knew, okay, these are just people. They are regular ass people. They treat me fine. I treat them fine. We look different, but we're all human.
Yeah.
So somehow I have been socialized to not hope like at least okay, not racist versus anti-racist. We can go into that. I've been
Hmm.
socialized to not like um think Black people are inferior.
Right. Yeah, and God, don't you? I hate it when I see like other POCs be racist towards other POCs.
Yeah.
I'm all like, we're fighting the same motherfucking battle. Why
Oh
do you
my
gotta do
gosh.
this? You're tearing us all down. You need to chill out. Okay, go
I
home.
know. I'm like, what do you have to gain from this? Like, nothing, bro. Like, you look stupid as right now. Like, I remember on
Yeah.
Facebook, there was this person, defund the police so you can give money to, people in poverty. And then they said, well, like in Chicago, there's like so many shootings, blah, blah, blah. Basically, like saying black on black crime.
Mm,
And I was like, I told him what's up. I was like, there's no such thing as black on black crime. Like, there's white on white crime, there's Asian on Asian crime, because the person from the same like ethnicity or group is most likely to be the same ethnicity to kill you or like to fight
yes.
you or commit crime against you.
Yeah, that's totally true. I also learned that from Criminal Minds, which I
Oh,
have been
nice.
watching obsessively since the pandemic started.
Who said that? Reed?
They all say that. Like they're all like
Yes.
because the victims are like all white women, they're like the unsub is a white male, mid-20s. And I'm all like, okay, yeah, makes sense. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly. So it's just frustrating that, like whenever we see other minorities like blame or say racist things about other minorities, even like within the races, y'all, like freaking Cambodians. Okay, a lot of other Asian people see Cambodians as like these jungle Asians, like uncivilized, dark, uneducated people. And it's really racist.
Oh god.
It's really racist.
Yeah.
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 And I'm just like, bro, you look like me. So what are you
Uh-huh.
talking about?
Ex- yeah.
You look
It's
exactly like
like
me.
um racism like between POCs or racist actions. Is it really racism if it's not people in power like enact saying racist things towards each
Oh.
other? Is it more prejudice? Because we've agreed that racism is like people in power like just keeping us down, to
Mhm.
put it simply.
I
But
I think it is racism because like you see like in a lot of different countries whenever there's like a ethnic minority, oh they're dead. Like
yeah.
ethnic cleansing, it's still, even though like maybe like ethnic people might not have as much power as white people, there's still a imbalance of power. So like for example, there are Muslim people in I don't want to say Cambodia, but there's like, let's say Muslim people are a minority in an Asian country. They
Mhm.
are being persecuted. So I
Right.
feel like it is racist. Maybe
Right.
not to the same definition. I don't know what to call that. It's not prejudice because prejudice is thoughts, but when you act on it and kill and cleanse people, I don't even know. You know what I'm saying?
That's definitely racist in other countries, but in the context of America,
Oh,
it's like we've established people in power are white people.
right.
Why Asians are granted um whiteness, and I say that in big quotes.
Yes.
Asian
Yes.
people, or at least East Asian people,
Yeah.
right? I'm not talking about Middle Eastern Asians or South Asians,
Mhm.
even though they are Asian. Um, East Asian people are kind of like almost granted whiteness by like the white institutions
Mhm.
because of the model minority myth that was created by white institutions
Right.
in order to undermine the civil rights movement in the 60s. My whole mesh of emotions, I'm like, damn, imagine what black people have been feeling their entire motherfucking
Mhm.
lives. You
Mhm.
know, you can't hide from being black.
Yeah.
Uh so it's just like no matter how much you like try to be um like assimilated into whiteness, you know, people are always going to treat you differently. And I
Yeah.
don't need to tell that to our black listeners, obviously,
Mhm.
but to our non-black folks listening, uh, that's the case, and that's unfortunate. So, and I also hate it when people talk about Black Lives Matter. All they want to talk about is like how bad it is. Like, oh my god, I had no idea racism is so bad. And look, 2016 Carolyn might have been the same way too, but I just don't like it because it keeps the conversation very surface level.
Mhm.
You know, it keeps you stuck talking about how like terrible black people have it. And, you know, systematically speaking, they do. But I hate to see people get stuck in that mindset because then they're going to start seeing black people as people needing to be like saved, air quotes.
Mhm.
People like needing help. That's also in air quotes.
Yeah.
But black people like, obviously are fucking capable of doing anything they want to do, you know, if even with the hindrance of white supremacy
Yeah,
and
like they've
racism.
survived, like they're resilient, like they've they know how to like get through life. So yeah, I agree. Like I don't like when people just kind of harp on the problems and like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. Or like when people are like, oh, this is not America. Or, like this is like not the way you know, it's shit like that. And I'm like, dude, open your fucking eyes. Like it is. Like stop acting so like when people act so surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, or like they didn't see this coming. And it's like, dude, okay, well, and then yes, I agree. Like it's like okay, there's only so much like complaining we can do, and
Yeah,
it's like, all right, now it's like time to take action and solutions, because otherwise it's just like people just sitting together and complaining
exactly.
about things they already know. It's like
Yep.
so it's like okay, it's better if you just go talk to somebody else who is a little bit resistant or doesn't know much about it at all,
Yeah.
versus people who already know all about it, and it's just like a waste. I think it's not a very good use of time.
I agree. It's like, let's push forward. Let's get deeper. Let's think harder
Yeah.
about what's going on, you know? So yeah, I feel like I've learned a lot since uh
Hmm.
2020 Black Lives Matter movement happened. Like using my voice and offering my opinions in the political realm, I feel like is valuable, you know?
Yeah.
Talking to people who like have what's the word? People who trust what I have to say, you know?
Hmm.
And it's so important to get out there and talk to people because it's about changing hearts and minds, right? And look, it's tough work to try and get your like low-key racist peers, friends, acquaintance, family members to understand that like what they're thinking will translate into what they're doing, which will trickle down into hurting people essentially.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of emotional like mental work, but it doesn't compare to what like black people are going through. So that's why I thought it was worth it. It was like this is what I can do as a person. Like is like talk to people and understand like the perspective of like why we need to help them in Black Lives Matter and why Black Lives Matter is a movement of liberation and not like what I don't know what people think it is. Like that, you know,
I
like
think it's
black
fucking
supremacy. Oh my god.
black.
Okay, and we laugh at that because
Uh-huh.
Like,
It's so
people are like,
ridiculous.
why is there a black club but not a white club? Like,
Yeah, it's like,
it's like, okay, were you born like, I don't know, in like, were you born in a jungle? Like, I don't, okay, not to offend jungle people. They probably know what's up. But like, were you born like yesterday?
uh-huh. Yeah, speaking up helps a lot, and just like giving your opinion helps a lot. And you might have heard the term like silence is violence,
Yes.
because like how the fuck are you going to like watch somebody fucking be beat and they're right over there and you're not going to say anything to the person attacking them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Much less do something. Now, I don't want to compare like racism to the story that I'm going to bring up about the one time that my friend was talking about me behind my back, but it's more so a comparison between when people don't say anything to stick up for you
Yes. It's
and
like the
how
bystander
it makes you.
effect.
I don't even know if I could call it the bystander
Oh,
effect, but
no, it's
like
not. Yeah.
if you listen to our toxic friendship episode, you might have heard me talking about my ex friend Harry Potter. And this bitch ass was allegedly my best friend. Yet when I was being like horribly like ostracized and bullied in the workplace that we both worked at, and Harry Potter knew about it,
Mm-hmm.
like Harry Potter didn't say or do shit. And when I came to that realization, um, that they actively chose to not say or do anything that could help me in any type of way, um, like it hurt a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like indescribable the amount of like betrayal, pain, hurt that I felt. Now take that little situation and apply it to when literally there's racism happening and maybe you're a black person who's being affected by racism and there are people who you think are your friends yet they don't really give a shit about what's happening to people who look like you or what could happen to you, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Like imagine, like I'm sure, like okay, I don't want to speak for black people, but I have had a friend who like a black friend who thanked me for like reposting all of these like information and like call to actions during Black Lives Matters. I just imagine if anybody that looked like you was getting beat, you know, and you see your friends not posting anything to
Mm-hmm.
like bring awareness or like ask you if you're okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's really hurtful.
Yeah.
Like it's really hurtful and also it's a good thing to show like to your friends like who's an ally and who's not. Like I imagine if like people who didn't post anything about Black Lives Matter, it was like, all right. Versus if somebody posts about Black Lives Matters, you know, people be like, all right, I know that person cares about me and cares about people who look like me. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm imagining that's really comforting to
Yeah.
at the very least.
And even if you like did do that on social media or you did do that in real life in whatever form way, doing the right thing is like it's a thankless job,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
like you don't do the right thing being all like, oh my god, I hope people tell me how much they appreciate me. And look, it's fucking awesome when they do, and I
Mm-hmm.
wish and I hope that you do receive all the recognition and praise in the world for doing the right thing. But it's not always the case, and you just have to have faith that what you're doing is actually affecting somebody. And let me tell you, it probably is.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to know, but again, you need to have faith that it is, and what you're putting out is being added to the collective uh like goodness in the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's like doing what you believe in, like faith, like you're talking about, and also like integrity. Like
Yeah.
integrity saying is like doing what you said you would do. Integrity is doing good things without other people knowing.
Hmm.
Like that's integrity, and like you need a lot of integrity if you're gonna stand up for other people and like their lives and their
Yeah.
future potential and other future potential lives, and just like the betterment of society.
Literally, yes. Like you need to show up for that to happen.
Like we are all linked together. So if one group or one person suffers, like we all suffer. Well, some more than others.
Yes. we all have the same thought. In my mind, we're both like white people.
Yeah. So one of my favorite quotes in the world that I think speaks a lot to humanity and why we should give a shit about each other, even if it's not directly affecting you, is MLK's quote: "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." First of all, poetry. That is beautiful.
Yep.
But yes.
Yeah, and I think back on when I read the book I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in the World Made for Whiteness by Austin Channing Brown, which is a great book, by the way, and a really quick read. So I would totally recommend it to anyone. At the very end of her book, she talks about like the death of hope for herself and the other Black people that she knows. And it might sound bad, and maybe objectively speaking, like hope dying is a pretty bad thing to happen. But from that, when all hope is lost, it could garner the strength to kind of like, what's the word, push forward. Maybe in another way you could say, when you hit rock bottom, the only way you could go is up. And it's like, you're gonna keep doing all this hard work in hopes that, like we were talking about, that generations ahead of us will reap their benefits. Some of you might know already, if you went to protest in 2020, you donated, you did all these things, you sent letters, you called into meetings, and you find out that not a lot has changed in the 6 months that 2020 Black Lives Matter has happened. And the Black Lives Matter movement itself has been going on since 2013, and the movement for Black lives and Black liberation and ending white supremacy in America has been going on for centuries.
Yep.
But it's still here. It's better than what was going on in the 1600s, I'm sure.
Right.
But it's there's still more work to do, and the work that we do now it's probably going to make life so much better for everyone else. And it sucks because it's all well, why do it if it's not going to help me? I don't know how to convince you to care about other people, I just don't know how to do that. Obviously you should take care of yourself and self-care, and make sure you're healthy, mentally well, you're getting paid in this lifetime. But sometimes there are things we need to do that are beyond us, right? So, and maybe that's a lot of pressure to people. I'm not saying you need to become the next Martin Luther King. I'm just saying you need to start maybe thinking a little bigger, and that's going to help a lot of people.
Hey, I just wanted to end the podcast with a quote and call to action by Angela Davis. "I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept." We're going to wrap up today's podcast here. We want to hear from you, especially now, because race discussions can be an uncomfortable and sensitive topic, but a topic that we feel is very necessary. You can send us your opinions, questions, and thoughts at justtwoasianwomen@gmail.com.
And you can find our podcast on Spotify, Anchor FM, and YouTube.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed it, please consider sharing it with your friends. That would be awesome. You'll hear again from us next week. Again, my name is Davy.
And I'm Carolyn. And we're just two Asian women. Yay! That was a little better.
That was our best one yet.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.